Whether you're a redstone professional or a complete noob, you'll be in need of plenty of redstone for late game components in the Create mod, as many of the more advanced pieces require electron tubes, which can come at a pretty pricey 8 redstone dust each. While you can easily head into the mines with a Fortune 3 pick and pick up a few stacks of redstone quite easily, if you want to mass craft these parts and fill up your toolboxes, you're probably going to want to automate it. And that's where I come in, with my new redstone farm design. I spent quite a long time on this one, as it's quite a complex process that uses a lot of different resources and steps, but as we build it, I'll go through step by step how to kind of make the collection of the inputs easier and more efficient. So there are 3 main inputs to this farm. The first being the Nether wart to make awkward potions, which is automatically farmed at the back using a redstone system and gantry to automatically harvest it, and it will also turn itself off when the required amount is in the storage vault. Next up is blaze rods, which are crushed to gain a bonus dust output and makes the blaze rods you collect significantly more efficient, as you're getting more powder per rod, when resultantly more redstone. These are used to make the potions of strength, which leads into the last part, Netherrack, which when crushed gives you cinder flour, which we spout with the strength potion we just made to make the redstone. But in order to build this, you're going to need a materialist, so pause here, gather your materials, and let's get started. So with your materials collected, we can now start building the farm, and now you're going to need an 11 by 17 space here, and bear in mind that this is the stone area of the marker I've set out here. The smooth stone is purely just an outline. But I'm going to start in this front left corner with just 4 of any block. You don't have to use deep slate for this. I know it was in the material list, but you can use whatever you want for this. We're going to put 2 chests on top of here, and then around the back of this, we're going to do a 3 by 4 area of shafts like this, and then cover those in belts. From the back of this one, we're going to take 1 shaft on the very end, and then we're going to go 8 blocks with this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this should extend 4 blocks out from the edge of these. Now once you've got this shape with your belts, we're going to take some brass funnels and we're just going to pop those on the back of the chests, as these are going to be the outputs for the redstone. On the end of these forwards facing belts, we're just going to place 4 spouts, as this is what's going to contain the strength potion to make the redstone. And behind these, we're going to have 4 brass tunnels set to round robin. And then we also need to make sure to just block off this last slot on the edge here with a random item. Anything except cinder flour or redstone will work here, as those are the only 2 things that will be passing through here. So just anything you got, a piece of dirt, stick, a fish, whatever you want. And then from the back of these spouts, we're going to place in some pipes, which are going to go behind, down over the top of the belt, across the top of the belt, sticking out by 1 like this. Then from here, we're going to take a mechanical pump facing towards the spouts, and then on the back here, you're going to want to place a smart fluid pipe, making sure that the angled side here is also facing towards the spouts. I'm not actually sure if the angle at which you place a smart fluid pipe affects the flow, but I actually always just make sure to point this angle piece in the direction the liquids are going. Then from here, we're just going to take a basin, a blaze burner, a pipe, and then the exact same thing again with the smart fluid pipes. I'm doing a very bad job of placing all this. But when you're done, you should have a system that looks a little bit like this. Then on the very end of the farm, on this rightmost blaze burner, we're going to dig out 3 blocks just like this, starting under the blaze burner coming forwards. On top of this, we're going to place a mechanical pump and a pipe going into there, making sure that this mechanical pump is pointing in. So if yours is like this, facing the wrong way, just tap it with a wrench and it should be facing the right way up now. So now you've got this little system. This is what actually makes the potion. So obviously water will come into here, mix with the nether wart, become awkward, into here, mix with the blaze powder, become strength, and then be sent to these. But of course we can't do any of that without the ingredients. So we're going to come back to this front piece where we just started with the redstone, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, place another block, 1, 2, 3, place another block. You should have known if you've done this right, as it should line up with this blaze burner and the end of this belt. On top of these, we're going to have 2 barrels, and then we can work on the cogs and stuff behind. For that, we come to this belt system here. We take 2 shafts out in the middle, a vertical gearbox, shaft, vertical gearbox, shaft, vertical gearbox, shaft, and guess what? Another vertical gearbox. And then you won't believe what comes next. You'd think it's a shaft, but it's actually another vertical gearbox. So once you've done all that, you should have something that looks a little bit like this, alternating shafts and gearboxes, and then on the end, a double here. So once you've got this alternating gearbox shaft piece in, we can add in the belts, of which we're going to add one shaft either side of these, and then one behind as well, like this. Once you've got this triple shaft business, slap a belt on it, and that's that bit good. Oh, and not forgetting, actually, a shaft in this belt here, and 2 gearboxes there. And just to demonstrate which way all your belts should be moving, I'm going to take a creative motor here, and I'm going to set it to 32 speed in the anti-clockwise direction. So these 4 should be coming from the spouts into the chests. This should make a loop going around like this, and this one should also be going up into the basin. Now, to provide the power to these pumps, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take a shaft out the back, a large cogwheel, another shaft there, and then the same thing just over here, like this. Now, it's worth noting, a really important note with this farm is that it cannot run above 128 speed. As you can see, if I set this motor here to 128, what happens is because we have a large cog powering a pump here, this is the same as using a small cog, so this doubles in speed when ratioing from a large cog like this. So this pump is actually spinning at 256 RPM, whereas this is spinning at 128. So what happens if we go above this is you can see the cogs actually break as this goes above the 256 RPM limit, and yeah, that breaks things. And of course, the last thing to do to finish setting up this system is some funnels on the back of these, and one on the basin there. You don't need one over here, obviously, as these items are going to go across and down and into the tunnels there, which will automatically round robin them and, yeah, all that business. So in order to make potions, obviously, we need to use heated blaze burners, which means these need a fuel source. And for that, we're going to be just using a little standard dripstone lava farm, which I've featured in quite a lot of my other tutorials. So to make that little section, what we're going to do is we're going to take a depot first of all. We're going to place it at the front in line with the barrels and in line with this smart pipe. And then we're going to take some fluid pipes in this shape here, a 2x2 next to it, and then 2 coming up, a mechanical pump pointing upwards from here, which will make more sense later, and then 4 cauldrons just on the little 2x2 area here. So then obviously the next part is pretty self-explanatory. You just make yourself a standard little lava farm with some solid blocks, encase the top in some trapdoors using some temporary blocks like this, fill it up with some lava, and put the pointed dripstone below. Super simple, super easy. So then, of course, once we've made the lava in the cauldrons, we need to put it into a spout so that we can turn it into buckets and then distribute it between the blaze burners. So for that, we're going to take our depot here from earlier, put a smart chute on top of that, another depot on top, a vanilla hopper behind it, and then another smart chute on top of that. And we're going to filter these with regular buckets on the top and lava buckets on the bottom here. Now, of course, if you've already done the lava, this pit may get a little bit spicy, so just be careful not to, like, set yourself on fire doing this, but we're going to bust out these guys and place in a pipe and a spout on here, and then just connect this pipe up at the back, straight up and across into the spout. So you can see this pump is going to be spinning round, and it's going to send the lava up into this spout where it can be turned into the buckets. And that, of course, is why we have the double vertical gearboxes here, because we can simply just put a cog on top of this, and it's going to power that pump for us. And then while we're here, we can actually also hook up the mechanical mixers that will be making the potions, as these are going to sit on top of here with 3 cogs in between them. We're going to have a single cog on this side, 2 encased chain drives, and then another cog directly connecting to that pump. So you can see this powers all the way through in a nice little chain. Now, of course, there is one last little piece to this puzzle, and that is a single cog here, which is going to power the water going into the basin for the awkward potions. Now, of course, you have to be really careful doing this when it's turned on. As you can see here, the smart filters have not yet been set with the potions, so you can see we've got water in all of these basins and now in the spouts. So to set the filters, it's probably easiest just to use a regular brewing stand here, but we're just going to make some awkward potions real quick and use those to set the filter. Alright, so now we have our awkward potions. We can just click those directly onto here, and that's going to set that filter. So then we'll come back with those, and we'll turn them into strength potions. And with the strength potion made, we can set that filter, and if these are full of liquid and stuff like this, you can very simply just break them and replace them, and it will empty them out. And, you know, I actually forgot a really important step in this. Kind of makes the whole thing work, you know, it's the crushing wheels. And they just sit on top of these gearboxes that we placed in. They're not just there for decoration. They're kind of hard to miss. I'm amazed that I did forget about them, to be fair. But anyway, yes, the crushing wheel should sit on top of here, and you should see the rotation should mean that the items flowing through will be crushed, the one on the left going clockwise, the one on the right going anti-clockwise. Or the other way around, I guess, if you're looking at it this way. Alright, so this is the editing Skeege. So when I was recording this, I actually forgot, like, a really important step, and that's the mechanical arm that deposits the lava buckets to the blaze burners. So for that, you just want to deposit to both blaze burners. You want to take from the bottom depot and deposit to the smart chute at the top. And we're just going to place that on this pipe next to the cog so it gets powered like that. So if you just want a redstone maker and you don't actually want to automate the nether wart, then this is kind of finished in a way, because the only thing left to add here is the nether wart farm. So if you already have a farm for that, I guess you can use this, but for those who want the extra final touch of the automatically farmed nether wart, let's do it. Okay, so for the nether wart farm, I've actually raised it up by one, as you can see here in the example. So to build this, what we're going to do is we're going to take our blocks again. You can use whatever you want for this, really, but I'm going to be using the layered deep slate, and we're going to come just all around the edge that I've marked out here, like this. So you should have a 6 by 17 area like this. Then from this end, we're just going to put one line of blocks here, and then this is where our soul sand is going to go, which is going to be 8 blocks worth. And what this means is that we will have 32 nether wart plants growing here, which is more than enough. I could probably do much less than this, but, you know, you can always send the excess overflow to, like, a composter and get some bonus bone meal out of this farm. But anyway, next up, I'm going to add another layer here, and then I'm just going to fill this remaining part with a different kind of block. Some cobbled deep slate should do. So your back area should be looking something like this, and if you're wondering why we have this single row of blocks here that isn't soul sand, that is because when the gantry reaches the end of the line, it becomes a solid block again. So if you planted anything here, as soon as the gantry moves to the end and then starts to make its way back, it's going to destroy whatever is here. So I suppose if you really wanted to, for the decoration, you could have this as soul sand. You just wouldn't be able to plant any nether wart on it. Alright, so from the back of the nether wart basin here, we're going to do a simple 3-block long mechanical belt with some shafts like this. And then in this back corner, we're going to do a double gearbox into 3 shafts like this. On this remaining corner, we want to place in a vault in a 2x2x1. It's very important to note that you have to face this the right way, as if you do it this way, the vaults will form 2 2x1 vaults, which we don't want. We want this to be one big storage block. And then off the back of this shaft, we're going to make another simple 3-block long belt like this. And then to hook this up to rotational power, all we simply have to do is place a cog here. So this belt should be pointing into the basin, this one into the vault. And of course, we're going to just drop 2 brass funnels on either entry and exit from the vault. So the next piece of the puzzle is to do the gantry mechanism. So for that, we're going to take a sequence gear shift, but we'll set this up in just a moment. Coming out of here, we're going to have gantry shafts, which will go all the way to the end here. And then on the last block, I'm just going to do a shaft and a metal bracket. You want the gantries to stop here. You can just do it like this and leave it floating, but I like to, with my gantries, just add a little bracket or something on the end, so it kind of looks a little bit more supported and decorative in a way. So for the actual gantry mechanism, what we're going to do is we're going to take our gantry carriage, place it on the first block of this here, followed by a linear chassis, a redstone contact in which the nub here, the actual face, is facing towards the vault. It can't be facing any other way. It has to be facing this way. Then on the other side of that, we're going to do another linear chassis, and then 4 mechanical harvesters, and a double chest just on the end right here. And then we just got to glue all this together, like so. And now with that chest in place, you can actually place in the last brass funnel on the edge of this thing, as when this moves, this isn't going to pop off. It will just drain the items when the gantry is stationary. And now for the bit that I'm really sorry about. All of you redstone haters out there, it's time to learn some redstone. I'm sorry. It's not that hard. I'll explain it as best as I can. I tell a lie. Your learning of redstone has been delayed by an iota longer. Because we need to set up the sequence gear shift, which is going to be set to piston mode for 2 of these, and it should be 12 meters on the gantry, making sure that this one is reversed. So what this is saying is every time the gantry activates, if I just grab a button here, it's going to move down all the way up. Well, that's in reverse, so that's a perfect example of what to do if that happens. So if your gantry directions are reversed, all you simply need to do is reverse the arrows. So it's going to move forward and then move back. So now, bam, bam. Cool. And you can see, as I mentioned earlier, it stops very briefly on this block, which is why we don't have the plants there. So before we work on the mechanism that's going to make the gantry work, I just want to add in the overflow system first, of which I'm going to start by adding some andesite casing just to all of these parts here to make it easier to work with, followed by a threshold switch onto the empty side of the vault here, of which I'm going to set mine to lower lane at 25, upper at 5, as I don't want this to be completely full and running all the time, but you can set the values on this to whatever you want, really. But yeah, I'm going to set mine 25 and 5, should work. And then from here, we're going to take 3 pieces of redstone dust like this, an observer pointing into this, and then a redstone dust on top of the gear shift. And then next up, we actually need to add the trigger for when this thing fires. So for that, we're going to place in a pulse repeater, and we're going to set this to 5 seconds, should work. And this is basically going to control how long the gantry stays docked here in order to drain items. Now, you can set this to however little or long as you want. I would probably say don't go less than 5 seconds so it has enough time to drain a decent chunk of the items out. Or you could really just set it to something like 10 minutes because, you know, nether wart isn't the fastest growing plant. I personally would prefer to have it a bit of a lower number, as it would reduce the time between the plant growing fully and being harvested, and therefore it might be a little bit more efficient, but it is entirely up to you. Obviously, if you want to be more lag conscious, then having a longer delay between the gantry firing would be better for frames, as it's less moving parts a lot of the time. So again, entirely up to you, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to set it to 10 seconds. But anyway, now you've got your pulse repeater in and you've decided on your timings, then we're going to add in a regular redstone repeater here and another regular redstone repeater pointing into the side of it. Now, what's going to happen here is when the threshold switch turns on, this redstone line is going to activate, therefore activating this here repeater, locking this one. For those who may be unfamiliar, this is actually a feature in vanilla Minecraft, is that if you lock a repeater from the side with another repeater, it adds this kind of bedrock bar on it, and it stops it from sending or receiving a redstone signal, and it will also lock it in place. But yes, so the observer is here in the eventuality that the farm has been turned off for more than this timer. So if you imagine, and then the final piece of the puzzle, and this should turn the farm on, is placing a redstone contact into this one. And you should see it light up. Our pulse repeater is going to slowly turn on, and then when it fires, it's going to fire our gantry off. Wonderful. And you can see every time it comes back and docks, it's going to restart that cycle all over again, until this threshold switch locks that repeater off. Now, the only issue with this is that if, in the theoretical situation that this has turned off, this pulse repeater would need another redstone signal to turn the gantry back on. So once this locks and turns itself off, it's not able to turn itself back on again, which is why we have this observer here, as when this redstone line changes from active, aka locked, to inactive, aka unlocked, it will ping this observer, which is connected to this redstone, connected to the sequence gear shift, starting the whole cycle all over again. Which I know this looks scary, but I think it's about as simple as I could make something like this that is kind of completely fail-safed in a way. Obviously, I could have avoided some of this, but I think this is a much more foolproof and harder to break system. But anyway, that, I believe, is everything. So all you need to do now is collect your inputs, and I did say in the intro I would be telling you just a couple ways to gather them easier. So the first thing up is blaze powder. Of course, you can always just make a vanilla blaze farm and smack them with a looting 3 sword. Not a bad method by any means. I've done that in my own private server, and you know what? It hasn't failed me so far. But you can also, with a train, pick up spawners and move them through portals as a part of a train contraption. Now, you can do this with minecarts, I believe, although it depends on your config settings as to whether you can pick up spawner minecart contraptions, as I believe by default in Create that is turned off. So if you want an easier time moving them, you can just enable this config setting, but by standard, trains are the ideal way to move spawners. And then next up is the Netherrack for the Cinderflower. Now, Netherrack, by nature, again, with a decent pickaxe, does not take a long time to gather a large quantity of. Really, just get an efficiency 3, even. I think mine's Netherrack instantly. Just chow down through a ton of it, and you'll have plenty. Now, obviously, with Netherrack, it's the best way to consider it is as a 1-to-1, although there is a 50% chance of a bonus Cinderflower when crushing it, so, you know, still pretty good rates. Alternatively, you could just make a drill minecart contraption, which are not that difficult to put together, and, you know, you can make some pretty cool looking drill contraptions if you are inclined as a builder. Hopefully, those tips on how to collect the Netherrack and Blaze help you out a little bit. I haven't really covered them as much as ideal, as I did initially actually try and design this farm with a Blaze farm as a part of it. But I figured that moving spawners was something that I think would be, I don't want to say too difficult, but I think it would be too much for a tutorial. Like, not everybody is going to be inclined to move a spawner to build something. But anyway, let me know if there's any particular things you'd like to see me cover in a tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, homies.